The saga of the Top Gear cars has a new chapter. We were in fear that they were going to get scrapped, but it looks like they found a new home. But first, a quick recap. Back in October 2024, the Beaulieu Motor Museum announced that after 15 years, their World of Top Gear exhibition was going to be closing. And remember, this was shortly after BBC had announced that Top Gear would no longer be filmed. I think they said it was going to be rested. And this was following the bad accident that Freddie Flintoff suffered during filming for the programme. The BBC were really quiet on what was going to happen to these cars, and the rumour mill around it was quite strong, and word came through that these cars were all going to be scrapped. We did a video shortly afterwards trying to raise awareness of this, and had tied up with Pat Hawkins of Taunton's County Classics Motor Museum, who was keen to give these cars a new home. And we wanted your help to guide us as to how to get hold of the BBC, and you helped en masse. Brilliant. Thank you to everyone that came up with ideas. And Pat himself has made over 30 different attempts, not just ringing the same number, email addresses, different phone numbers, and not once has the BBC come back to him, which I think is outrageous. Now, a few weeks after our video, on the Smith and Sniff podcast, Richard Porter, who was a former scriptwriter for Top Gear and later Grand Tour, mentioned that he had word from a contact at the BBC that someone had realised that these cars were actually of interest and was working hard to try and find a new home for them. So it does sort of suggest initially they were just going to get rid. But interestingly, he also said that originally, back in 2009, when this exhibition opened, the BBC had just used this effectively as free storage. Beaulieu was interested in having them. The cars apparently were all stored at Dunsfold Test Track, basically deteriorating outside, so it was a win-win for everyone. But as time went on, the BBC realised, or felt, should we say, that there was value in the Top Gear brand, and then started charging Beaulieu a licence fee for using the Top Gear name. And Richard Porter thought this may well have been the reason why Beaulieu had decided to not continue with the exhibition. Then in January 2025, BBC Studios released a statement saying they had managed to rehome the majority of the iconic vehicles, and they would be available to be viewed at a soon-to-be-announced location, but didn't say where. And they also mentioned that the Fiat Panda limo and Mini Cooper had been scrapped, and to be fair, when I saw them they were in pretty poor condition, so that's not a big surprise. So where are they going to be? The Grampian Transport Museum. Well, where's that, I hear you ask? Well, of course it's in Grampianshire, up north. Very up north, in fact. It's about 25 miles west of Aberdeen. This museum was established in 1983 and attracts around 25,000 visitors a year while it opens during the summer months. It's a transport museum rather than a motor museum, which means it's got a fairly eclectic mix. It's got push bikes, it's got motorbikes, it's got trains, it's even got a fairground organ. So it's quite a different mix of vehicles there for everyone to see. They're going to launch a new exhibition called On That Bombshell, which of course was a great Top Gear catchphrase, and that opens on the 28th of March 2025. They say a few of the vehicles are going to have some conservation work. You know, they've not, as we've seen in other videos, been particularly loved over the last few years, and they want to do that to preserve them for the future. But of course you want to know which vehicles are there. Well, I'll put a list on the screen of all the ones that they are keeping, but the iconic ones that everyone was concerned about are there. In particular, the Hilux, that was the big one that everyone mentioned, and the Jaguar XJS TGV12 sports train, I think it was, that Clarkson had. That's been saved as well. So have the three boat cars, the ones where they were attempting to cross the channel in. They've been saved as well. So it's great those iconic ones are there. But the big question is, what about the rest? And that's all seemed to have gone quiet. It's almost like, well, we've saved a few and that'll make it all go away from the BBC's point of view. And my other question is, why did they never get back to Pat? You know, he made all these contact attempts and no one had the courtesy to respond. At the end of the day, the BBC is a public service broadcaster. The critical word in there being public, and we effectively pay them through a tax. But they seem to forget who pays their wages. So let's hope we hear something on those other vehicles in the future. But as ever, thank you so much for watching.